Hi everyone, Ron Valant here. This video is actually in three sections. The first two sections have to do with statements that the Pope has made. And then the third one is Chrystia Freeland when she was given the new position of Finance Minister for Canada. And all of these things tie in together, in my opinion, and it's very interesting. So the very first one is something the Pope had said. This is back in 2016, February 10th, when it was posted on YouTube. And what the Pope is talking about there is that we live basically in an unjust situation in the world where 80% of the wealth of the world, resources and the wealth in general, is concentrated in 20% of people's hands. And he goes on and talks about how what we really need to do is look forward to this Jubilee that's coming up. And now the Jubilee is biblical, and you find it in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 9 and on. And every 50 years there would be a resetting of everything, whereby if, let's say, you owed money to a person, that debt was canceled. Or if, let's say, you had been sold into slavery on account of your debt, that you would be freed from slavery. So as a real reset, and things were changed. And so the Pope is alluding to that. And then he's talking to the people saying that if this Jubilee comes and it doesn't affect you in the pocketbook, it's not really a true Jubilee. So he's kind of letting them know that this Jubilee is going to really be hard-hitting. So that's pretty amazing. It's interesting how there's a fellow named Bo Polney. He's an analyst of time when it comes to cryptocurrencies and gold and silver. And he comes up with the craziest ways of coming up with his time analysts. He uses biblical numbers and timelines. So a lot of people are turned off by that. But, I've been watching him for about a decade now. And I'd have to say that while he's, bombed on a few big ones, but he really has nailed a lot of them when it comes to the tops of gold and silver and the bottoms as well. And same with Bitcoin. He even to the day of coming up with his analyst of time. And he is stating that September 18th is a very key date. He's saying it's going to be like just almost earth-shattering. But he doesn't know what it is. He says it's about a 10-day window. So that's kind of an interesting perspective. You also have here with the Global Economic Forum talking about a global reset. They want to reset everything. And their conference is coming up in January of 2021. So they're saying here with the Global Reset that it is a commitment to jointly and urgently build the foundations of our economic and social system for a more fair, sustainable, and resilient future. So there you go, sustainable. That has to do with UN Agenda 2030 and sustainable development. They go on to say that it requires a new social contract. What does that mean? Centered on human dignity and social justice. Now, this social justice you will hear from the UN and from the papacy on and on again. So when you hear those words, take particular attention, because that means a radical, radical change in our lives. In the second video, the Pope is talking about how the pandemic has put us all into crisis, and how basically that he asks the question, are we going to continue on with our current economic situation, which is socially unjust? Like how you tie the two together is beyond me, but you can just see this whole thing is just a real con game. And then he goes on to kind of quote from Acts chapter 4:32, when they all came in together and they put all things in common, and they went and did the work, And so he's talking about how that's what we need to do on this planet. It's our common home, and that we have to put all things in common. So that's total, like the way he's talking about it, it would be like communism. It's a different scenario in Acts chapter 4. And then we have in the last video, Chrystia Freeland. She was being brought in as a finance minister, and she talks about the reopening of the economy on account of COVID, the pandemic. And she goes on to say that it has to be green, it has to be equitable and inclusive. And so there you go. You got the framework of all of these things all tied together, all talking about basically a new system of governance, a new system of society, essentially a global reset. And this is coming on quickly, here you have the Jubilee coming on, where the Pope is talking about how it's going to affect our pocketbooks. You have the Economic Forum mentioning how they're going to have their global reset convention in January. Now, the Jubilee in biblical times would last a whole year. So starting from September 27th on, you could see some radical change of the global reset. And it reminds me of the book that I purchased back in about 1992. It's called Keys of This Blood by Malachi Martin. I'm going to read just a couple paragraphs in the very beginning of the book. Malachi Martin is a Jesuit professor and a Vatican insider. And he's talking about basically how there's a global competition between the papacy, the capitalist West, and communism as to who's going to be running the world. So here's a quote. It says, "Willing or not, ready or not, we are all involved in an all-out, no-holds-barred, three-way global competition. Most of us are not the competitors, however. We are the stakes. For the competition is about who will establish the first one-world system of government that has ever existed in the society of nations. It is about who will hold and wield the dual power of authority and control over each of us as individuals and over all of us together as a community. The competition is all out because now that it has started, there is no way that it can be reversed or called off. No holds are barred because once the competition has been decided, the world and all that's in it, our way of life as individuals and as citizens of nations, our families, our jobs, our trade and commerce and money, our educational systems and our religions and our cultures, even the badges of our national identity, which most of us have always taken for granted, all will have been powerfully and radically altered forever. No one can be exempted from its effects, and no sector of our lives will remain untouched." So there you have it. It's all coming into view. And I remember reading this back then, and I read, the book, and I thought, boy, that's quite a thing they want to do. And they said that basically within our lifetimes, these will be achieved. And here we are. We're at the very doorsteps of it now happening. So I would say prepare as what you can, because some real radical stuff is about to happen, I'd say, in the next year. Could be even starting this September 27th. We'll have to see. So take care and stay safe.
Ma più o meno, questa è una cosa che le cifre non sono sicure, ma l'80% delle ricchezze dell'umanità sono nelle mani di meno di un 20% della gente. È un giubileo e questo lo dico ricordando la nostra storia di salvezza. Il giubileo è per convertirsi, perché il nostro cuore divenga più grande, più generoso, più figlio di Dio, con più amore. Ma vi dico una cosa, se questo desiderio, se il giubileo non arriva alle tasche, non è un vero giubileo. Avete capito? E questo è nella Bibbia, non l'inventa questo Papa, no, è nella Bibbia. Noi stiamo vivendo una crisi. La pandemia ci ha messo tutti in crisi. Ma ricordatevi, da una crisi non si può essere uguali. O usciamo migliori o usciamo peggiori. Questa è la nostra opzione. Dopo la crisi, continueremo con questo sistema economico di ingiustizia sociale e di disprezzo per la cura dell'ambiente, del creato, della casa comune. Pensiamoci. Possano le comunità cristiane del XXI secolo recuperare questa realtà, la cura del creato e la giustizia sociale. Vanno insieme, dando così testimonianza della resurrezione del Signore. Se ci prendiamo cura dei beni che il Creatore ci dona, se mettiamo in comune ciò che possediamo in modo che a nessuno manchi, allora davvero potremo ispirare speranza per rigenerare un mondo più sano, più equo.
To Lena's question about decarbonization as part of our economic plan going forward, of course, it has to be part of it. I think all Canadians understand that the restart of our economy needs to be green. It also needs to be equitable. It needs to be inclusive.